Good morning. Greetings and salutations. It's Friday, June 26th, and this is Willow number 10. What I have done is at the base of at the beach front in front of our property, which are rocks, and the rocks are always shifting around and moving. I've planted willows. The goal being that the willows, the roots of the willows, will stabilize the shoreline here. So that was number 10. Here's number 9. So I'm going to sit down on another rock. Okay, so let's continue from willow number 9 again. What happened is I went to sit down to film and somehow fell and scraped my arm. Fortunately the camera was not damaged, but I sat there for maybe 30 seconds and then got up and continued filming, and I filmed for probably another 20 minutes. And then when I came to sign off, I realized the red light had not been on, and I was talking to myself for the entire time. So here it is, a couple of hours later. I've had lunch, done the tasks I was seeking to do today, and now we're going to continue with my tour of the front of the beach and these willows, and around the property to show you what I've done. So here we are at, that was willow number 9, was here. So let's just work our way along and try not to fall again. Willow number 8, and that's below. You can see, I can't say the rocks have rolled down, but they've settled down, and that's what I'm hoping, that by putting in a network of willow roots along its front, that the rocks will cease to move downward. Now, the stakes really have been pounded into the ground, because what I discovered is that despite the rocks, when you clear away these rocks, if you remove these top rocks, the rocks underneath are even smaller, and eventually there's sand, and eventually is usually within 4 to 6 inches. In fact, over here you can see the remains of the sand that I pulled out of this hole. So it was pretty easy to pound. Once you got through the first 4 inches of rocks, it was pretty easy to pound the stakes on. So let's continue. That's number 8. Number 7. So I'm expecting when I come back in another 2 weeks, another week, that these will have some amount of leaves on them. That's the theory. The water has come up probably by 2 feet since yesterday. So there's a lot better to do to dig the holes yesterday and plant them. Here's the water, right here, and here is number 6. Number 5 is right here. You can see the water's close. By the way, every hole that I dug, even down 2 inches, there was moisture. Now, this water was at least a foot lower yesterday, perhaps more. Number 5. Even this one, this is probably the highest one, number 4. And the sand was wet. The rocks were wet when I dug down. So there's 7 of them on this side of the opening to our cottage. And then there's 3 on the other side. Number 3. So as I said, I'm expecting to see leaves on these next time, which will be another week. Number 2. And number 1. Number 1 was the only one I did not use the sledgehammer to pound the stake in. So this stake is just wedged below all these rocks. We'll see if that makes a difference. Because the water has been up as high as some of these rocks below, to the edge of the base of these rocks. So we'll see if any of these stakes do indeed float out as time goes on. So you can see the slope of the rocks. They have changed. The slope used to be more of a hump, whereas now it's become a gradual slope. So they are settling. So the idea is that anchoring the ground with willow roots will start to firm up the base here. Okay, let's go up the stairs and try not to challenge ourselves here by falling again. Okay, this is interesting coming down, which is why I haven't filmed it, and it's even more interesting coming up. There we go. Okay, so let's turn around and see what the height is. I'm just going to sit here. And you can see that there are still willows in the water. Now these willows have just seeded here. They seeded here last spring because we had low water for quite a long period of time. I'm surprised these haven't drowned because the water has been a little bit lower, but on the whole these have been in the water for most of the year. So we'll see if they survive. If that's good, that's even better. It certainly takes away a bit from the view, but I'm anticipating that once these willows get going, is they will start to collect debris and sand around their trunks. Okay, let's go up this way. This is a trail camera that Alain installed. I've walked by this many times, and here am I taking another picture of it. Taking a picture before. This is the second picture. The last one was when I was not filming, and I thought I would. The reason he's installed the trail camera here is to the left. It's a bit hard to see on a screen, and when I look through the screen on the camera, you don't get the vision of depth, or you can't adjust quickly enough to the vision of depth, or depth of vision. So there is a trail, some kind of trail where animals walk through here, and it's maybe a little bit more obvious on this side. So that's why he's put the trail camera there. We'll see what we catch. Now, for Father's Day, Lynn and Alain and the kids and Diane gave me a gift of a consultant to come out and talk about native plants and make recommendations on what should we plant, what could be planted out here. And I'm anticipating that everything from where I'm standing to, it's in the shade now, well, you can see this clump of leaves there. Let's go below that to the ground. All this clearing here, underneath these are plum trees, and all these irises, which are not irises, daylilies, which are non-native, also the daisies are non-native, they could be easily replaced by native plants. So I'm looking to see what she says about that. This would be beautiful with native plants in here. This side, Alain built two sawhorses to store the canoe, and I need to trim the bush when we come down next time. Let's go around this way. Last two things. These were planted with, these are marigolds, which deer do not like. Well, pardon me, which deer do not prefer. You may still eat them in an emergency. So those were planted because they are certainly at a deer level. Our original idea was to put the last flower box back up on its supports. But when we looked at it, it's in pretty poor shape, so we've left it on the ground over here. The only challenge is that these are petunias and deer will eat those. Now these petunias have been planted for 2 weeks, and since they're still here, that implies that we haven't had deer in 2 weeks, which is good. Okay, let's go this way and I'll show you what I did today. Now before I do that, let's just go, this is an unusual area. I'm going to let it grow up. These are poplars, and if they grow up straight, that's fine. That's fine. In here, I must have planted 12 ferns, and I'm surprised, but not one appears to have survived. Quite unusual. I'm surprised at that. There, I did plant some on the far side. In fact, if you look just past here, you can see the fronds of some. There we go. Now maybe it needs to be more sun. Anyhow. So here's what I did today, is I went very, very quickly, because we're going back to the city in a little while. I went down the back of the cottage and removed the growth, which was right up against the house. And it was primarily raspberries, and there needs to be airflow back here. So I've removed the growth, and now I have to go in, and that'll be next time, and remove the leaves that are down here so that there's airflow coming out from underneath the cottage. The cottage at the back is almost on the ground, and that's really not very good. And there needs to be as much airflow as there can to make sure it stays dry. So, let's come back here. So, this is another area that's a real candidate for native plants. In here, well, I know there's some raspberries, which I don't like to be in here. There's grass in here. Now, there's also, this is a good example, these are wood lilies. They look like daylilies, but they're true lilies. They're lily bulbs as opposed to daylilies, which are corms. And there's quite a few of them in here. And I know if the deer come through here, the deer just nip the tops of the lilies, the lily buds. So, but they're still very nice. But this whole area could easily become native plants. And indeed, I've planted some in here. But at the moment, I can't tell you what, or indeed where I put them. One of the dilemmas I have is when you plant a dozen plants, do you run around and put little stakes next to each one? Well, maybe you do, because I don't remember what's planted or where it's planted. So there's more wood lilies. If you look in here, let's just go to here. There's one. So this is fine to have these at the back. If I go up a bit higher, there's another. And if I go just to the right of that, there's another. So that's a real bonus to have those in here. They're very nice. They're the color of daylilies, a little bit darker, so a dark orange. And here's the path that I can't believe we lasted since 2005 until this summer to have this path completed. Or was it last summer? Last summer. And now it's very, very handy. So we finally had the last thing that occurred is the fellow that built our outhouse. I asked him to add in, let's go to this one, these nails just at the corners, because there were no nails at the corners, and so the boards were only tagged at the top, and so you could flip them, and particularly these little ones, you could just flip them up and they would bounce up and down. So he's just tagged 2 nails, galvanized nails. Oops, there we go. And that's finished that. That's corrected that. And of course where the tool shed was, or where the outhouse, the old outhouse used to be, has now been removed. And this debris that's the debris that I cut out from behind the cottage this morning. So that'll all rot down. On the whole, the only thing that moves off of this lot to the garbage dump are invasive weeds, invasive things, and those primarily are Virginia creeper and creeping bellflower. Everything else I chop up and put back. Let's come back this way. So I still have to come down, so let's take a look. So from this side you can see how I've done. And it's a quick zoom down here. It needs to be gone through further. I've left this Virginia creeper for now, but it really needs to go. And I need to do this side of the cottage as well. This is more grass. And there's some native plants right just past the downspout, but some of those need to go. Now, I certainly want to leave this side for access to the holding tank. So this needs to be weed whacked on this side. But on this side, there are indeed native plants in here, along with poplars, along with raspberries. And the poplars and raspberries will be removed. See, here's another wood lily. So they are starting to grow in here, which is very, very encouraging. And I need to clean up on this side of the path. There's debris. There's bushes that are hanging over the path, so this just needs to be cleaned up. And with that, let me come around to the front. Oh, the last thing, I planted 10 native plants in here. And this is 3 years ago, so they should be wonderful, but they're not. I'm speculating that this is a coneflower, and I don't know where the other 9 are. And what else is in here is either grass or creeping bellflower, or creeping Charlie. And so that will come out. And that'll be next time. And so with that, let's just take a look out the front. There we go. I see a bird way out there. Let's see if we can find out what it is. Oh, it's a seagull. Let's come back. So, it's a very nice day. Here, I'm just going to come to here. It's a very nice day. And with that, I shall say greetings and salutations.